Check 1, 2.
All right, here we go. Hey, welcome back to the podcast. On today's episode, Chapter 7 out of the book, Anger Management, Turning Anger to Advantage.
You got it.
Anger management.
There was a hesitation.
And I just wanted that real kind of intentional moment of what's it gonna be? Has it changed?
On today's episode of Just These Guys, we're covering Chapter 7 of the book, Anger Management, Transform Anger to Advantage.
Mm-hmm. And it's good to be back.
Yes.
We had a very, very, very uncommon thing happen last week where Doc got sick. And
First time
had to call in. Yeah, first time since we started this whole thing.
But I am back now.
He's back.
80% back.
He's back and he's at it.
And you are angry.
I am angry.
What's up with that?
I came in here angry this morning, and I'm trying to figure out how to make it my advantage because I have had an epiphany. It's a very, eye-opening, I don't even know what to call it. Well, I know what to call it. Here's what it is. I have been in the middle, and some could say victim of, a 33-year-long psyop.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's Dawn's assertiveness. That woman is assertive. And I have basically just been the victim of it.
I don't know if that's... well, we'll have to break that one down just a little bit to figure out what the heck you're talking about.
Listen, man, she gets what she wants. I can't tell you how many times I'll be standing there and I'll just be angry. And she'll just be calm as can be. And she'll just be like, okay, all right, it's all right. And I'm like, listen, just because I'm acting like a 3-year-old don't mean you got to treat me like a 3-year-old. No, I kid. Assertiveness, though.
Yes.
It's such a powerful thing.
Assertiveness. And this has been building these past 6-7 weeks to Chapter 7.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting close to the end when we pull it all together. But just a quick summary because this all fits together. In the introduction, we learned that anger is good. We have it for a reason. So let's learn what that reason is. Chapter 1, we learn it's a problem-solving tool. So rather than shutting it down and robbing ourselves of this great tool, we can actually learn how to use it to our advantage.
Yep.
And in Chapter 2, we introduce the model so that you can see where this is all going to plug in and fit in, what we're doing, why we're doing it. In Chapter 3, we talked about boundaries, which primarily comes down to self-control.
Yep.
I don't control others, so I'm going to focus on controlling myself. In Chapter 4, we started looking at perceptions, and the first one we looked at were should statements, because should statements reflect a lens that we're viewing the world through. Mm. And when we view the world through a lens of should statements, we cause ourselves to be frustrated and angry.
Yep.
Chapter 5, we looked at the perceptual process of jumping to conclusions. And that's another thing that we do where we presume to read other people's minds or to know how things are going to work out. And generally, we never conclude anything positive.
Right.
We always conclude negative, and then we start reacting to what we've imagined they think. And this is a big source of our problem with anger. And then Chapter 6, we talked about emotional well-being and trying to understand how emotions such as guilt can help us actually improve and heal relationships and draw power from these emotions. So that brings us to Chapter 7, which is assertiveness. And assertiveness is where the rubber hits the road in all of this. Mm. Assertiveness is how you take all of this energy and direct it in a way that helps you solve a problem.
Mm-hmm. And that's what... Now, see, I can say all this about my marriage because, again, Dawn doesn't listen to the podcast. So there's ever time where I can be assertive. is when she's not involved. No, she's just very good at expressing what it is that she wants.
Well, and this is the deal when we're talking about anger, people, you know, people fight, people argue, people get in a lot of conflict, and that's where, we call people they are angry as if that's a negative thing, that they have an anger problem because they're always fighting, arguing,
Mm-hmm.
or we don't want to fight, we don't want to argue, so we shut things down until we explode.
Yeah, see, that's me. That's my point. She's much further advanced at this than I am. I haven't taken the time to admit that I want to grow. I want to join her.
Well, and what assertiveness is simply letting other people know something about you.
Mm-hmm.
That's what assertiveness is, and this is a communication technique that helps us resolve problems. And the funny thing is when we're doing it, we don't realize it. We don't recognize it as an alternative to conflict. So, for example, assertiveness, letting other people know something about you. If you go into the grocery store,
Mm-hmm.
you're walking up and down the aisle with your cart, everything's fine. Then you see somebody turn into the aisle with their cart. You don't do anything, but you check in on it.
Right.
And now as they draw closer to you, you will periodically double check where they at. As their cart moves closer to you, you're looking for your shopping list and checking out this cart. And at some point, as they approach you and you approach them, you will move your cart to the right, maybe nod at them, and then go back to shopping. And the question I always ask people is, why do you move your shopping cart? And they never have an answer. And the reason we move the shopping cart, and this can, devolve into a 30-minute wrong answer session here.
Yeah.
The real reason we move our shopping cart is because we're nice people.
Yeah, exactly.
We're nice. 90% of us are just nice people.
We're willing to share the experience.
And what allows me to express my niceness to them is that I can see where they begin and end in time and space.
Mm.
Meaning, in space, I can see where your body begins and where it ends.
Mm-hmm.
And in time, based on where you've been for the last 10 seconds, my brain is doing physics calculations about where you will be in the next 10 seconds. So as you stand over there still, my body is estimating that's where you will be in 10 seconds. So I can swing my arms around like this because I'm not going to hit you. But if you were to start moving towards me, my brain would start doing calculations. And at some point, as you neared me, I would lean out of your way. The reason I lean out of your way is I'm a nice guy. But what allowed me to express that niceness was I was able to see where your body begins and ends, where your physical boundaries are.
Yeah.
And once I recognized you were approaching, our boundaries were approaching each other, I could then do something to share the physical space. Where do I begin and end personally? What would make Lance laugh? What would make him cry? What's his politics? What's his religious affiliations and beliefs? So if this relationship is going to work out, whose responsibility is it to learn all that? If you and I are going to be able to get along.
For you and I'm responsible for me.
Exactly. And people always tell me, well, it's me. No, you can't read my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So first thing I got to do is figure out what I like, what I appreciate, what I want, what it makes me happy, where I want to go in this world. What are my religious beliefs? What are my morals? What are my values? What are my values? So that I can then share those with you. Mm-hmm. I can show them to you. Because you can't read my mind. You see where my body begins and ends physically, but you don't see where I begin and end psychologically. So for us to be able to get along, I have to share that with you.
Yep.
And so what I'm doing is asserting myself. I'm simply showing you something you didn't know. I'm not arguing with you. I'm not getting into conflict with you. This is the exact opposite. if you came in here and said, I got a joke about three nuns in a bar, I might say, you know what? I'm not comfortable with religious humor. And then you may jump back. Hey, sorry about that. Why are you throwing your hands up? And that's what we do when somebody's, when we feel like we've offended somebody, we throw our hands up and we lean back.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we would do if we almost bumped into somebody in the store.
Sure.
We turn the corner and almost bump into them. We step back. We hold our hands up like hand check, like we're in junior high band on the bus or something. Hand check. Because we almost violated their physical space, we physically reel back. Well, when I tell you I don't like religious humor, I'm showing you my psychological boundary. You now recognize you almost crossed my psychological boundary, so you step back mentally and you express it by stepping back physically as well. Did I say anything about you?
Nope.
I'm telling you about me. This is not confrontation. This is not arguing. I'm not comfortable with religious humor. You step back and say, sorry. That's fine. And then you might say, well, what about ducks? Are you okay with ducks? I got a joke about ducks. And I say, sure, I love ducks. So what's happening here is I show you my boundary. I'm not comfortable with religious humor. You stop, take a step back, respect my boundary, and then you ask permission to approach my psychological boundary by asking me if I'm ready to hear a joke about ducks. And when I say sure, then you and I get along great with jokes, laugh. None of that can happen if I don't assert myself, if I don't let you know. By letting you know something about me, I'm inviting you to work with me.
Mm-hmm. Instead of just walking away offended.
Right.
Because you stood there and listened to the joke that you knew darn well was going to offend you.
Right.
And then you get angry and you walk away or you stomp away. Or you come back at them, not in an assertive way, but in an angry way.
You sinner, you're going to hell.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes total sense. The physical, boundaries are so much easier to perceive or to see, but the reality is the mental boundary is every bit, if not more so, important to recognize. But all day long we tend to either abuse them or ignore them.
Right.
Yeah. So.
And this, kind of goes back to when we were talking about chapter 3 with boundaries of self-control. Boundaries. I don't control you. I can't read your mind.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not appropriate for me to jump to conclusions about what you're thinking, why you're thinking, why did you tell me that joke? I don't know all of that. So for me, if you're doing stuff and it could be taken a positive or it could be taken a negative, maybe I take it a positive, just if I'm going to jump to any kind of conclusion, or I ask.
How easy?
Well, you're telling me these jokes. Why are you telling me these jokes? What's going on? Mm-hmm. Or I tell you about me. You may not realize this, but I'm not into that kind of humor. But this sharing of information from each other it's an invitation to come together. And we've seen it. If I'm sticking with the church theme, if I'm sitting in church and somebody behind me is talking while you're on stage preaching, and I turn around and I say to them, hey, you may not realize this, but I can't hear Mike while you two are talking. They tend to go, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And what did I say?
Well, you said something about you.
Boom.
You didn't turn around and say, hey, I'm not sure if you realize this, but you're wind-eared in a sack full of farts. Can you zip it?
Can you shut the hell up back here?
Yeah, we're in church. We're trying to get some good.
But when I tell somebody about me, it's an invitation to them. They may not have realized them. I'm inviting them into this.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. That's an assertive statement.
Sure.
I appreciate that thing you just did. I'm telling you about me. And when I say thank you, you feel pulled in.
Mm.
Now you know something about me you didn't know before. Hey, thank you for that. Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
And it draws us closer together. And the same thing can happen when we use assertiveness. If, because the joke thing's a good example, because you come in a good mood, you're bouncing off the walls, you want to tell me this joke. That can go 8 ways, sideways.
Sure.
We could end up arguing about that. We could end up mad at each other about that. That could end in a very bad situation and us not talking for weeks because of the conflict that we normally approach these things. Or like you were talking about at the beginning, where you don't say anything. You just smile and nod your head and walk on, and then that gets added to the wood pile.
Mm-hmm. That's usually what I do.
and eventually that wood pile gets pretty big, and we light everything on fire. But that's kind of the normal way with dealing with things we don't like.
Yeah.
This is a new way of dealing with things, just simply to tell other people what you think, what you feel, what you want, what you like, what you don't like.
I'll give you an example with my beautiful bride just yesterday. So there's 2 things in the remodel world or construction world, whatever you want to say, that I really I don't enjoy them. One is plumbing, so I avoid it as much as possible. And the other is electrical, only because I've been in several near-death experiences when I have tried to do electrical. And so I'm changing out the light fixture in our main bathroom because we just remodeled it. And I'm on edge the whole time, even though I know darn well it's not hot. The switch is off. I'm just, there's something about it that always makes me I'm always a little angry. I'm immature when it comes to, and so Dawn knows this. She knows this 1,000%. She knows this. And so I get this one put up, and she comes in and she says, "Oh, that looks really good." I said, "Thank you." And then she points to the one I just took down, and she says, "I think that one would look great in our bathroom." So while you're in your misery, just continue right on into our bathroom. And so I didn't. But she asserts herself, and it's a smart thing to do.
I think that looks great.
Yeah.
She's telling you how she thinks.
She did.
How she feels about the new light.
Yes.
I think that one would look great in the other bathroom.
And ultimately, I want to make her happy.
But she didn't say go do it.
No, she didn't.
She just said, I think it would look great in the other bathroom.
She didn't say, you need to suck it up and go put that one in the other bathroom.
That's what you heard.
Yeah. Yeah. So I will end up doing it probably tonight, because I want ultimately what she wants, but she's just really good. And I have to give her props for that. And it's not in a negative way. She just asserts her positivity.
And so chapter 7, assertiveness. And then there's additional techniques in the book about how to be assertive and how to remain assertive, which is always a trick for a lot of people. But I assert myself, they don't respond. So how to remain assertive. And that's in the book as well. So
awesome. Good stuff. Assertiveness.
Give
it a go. It'll improve your life.
Thank you for sharing, Pastor Mike.
We're rolling right on through. We got chapter 8 coming up next week, and then there's just one more.
Getting close to wrapping this thing up.
Yeah, we are. Anger management. Transfer anger into advantage. You can get it at all the sites out there.
Thank you guys for tuning in here today. We're just these guys. We got Pastor Mike.
We got Dr. Parker.
We will see you next week.